Welcome to the GSTL. We have potentially the best match so far this round, and it's between the two highest level Team League teams in the entire world, Axiom-Acer and AZUBU.
Axiom-Acer versus AZUBU is definitely going to be one of the most important matches this season for both teams. Axiom-Acer is still in the top rank here in our standings, and AZUBU is the team that is trying to get there. With a win today, they would be making a huge leap. But as you can see, Axiom-Acer already well prepared here. And on the other hand, AZUBU has a little bit of support today. Hyun is actually in the studio trying to support Symbol.
Yep, Hyun came, and just having Hyun in the studio got to be a great supporter. And it's always good to see Hyun back here in the studio. He's such a fun guy.
It's always fun to just see the former TSL guys together. They were always, earlier they were sitting together like with Senna as well and just talking. So back then they were really more like a family than a team, and it still shows.
Yeah, definitely so. Even having the referee here actually used to coach the team, so he can just make jokes with them as well. So
he was a really good coach, and then he became one of the most handsome admins that we actually have here in Korea.
One of the most handsome admins of all time, if
definitely.
I do say so myself. But it's good to have like a family that still sticks together despite being broken up. And it's really cool how TSL is like that. A few of the players actually moved on to go back to school and stuff, but all the players who stayed players, still talk to each other all the time, practice together all the time.
Well, but today, of course, we are focusing on the team match that we have here, and we have actually really interesting lineups. Today's matches should be really good. Alicia also earlier was a little bit bantering and was like, why do I have to face a Terran player? I really want to go up against the Zerg right now. He really likes the matchup at this point in time. Was kidding with Jan a little bit, and Jan was basically saying that he doesn't think that Zerg has an easy time against Protoss, but Alicia kind of disagreed there a little bit, so they were bantering quite a lot, but Alicia not too happy about the matchup that he's playing today.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it, but it's going to be an exciting one nonetheless, and I'm looking forward to today's match. It's just for me simply because we've got some of the best teams in the world competing here, just going head-to-head. They're both really competing for like the highest spots here in this league, not just, are they going to make it to the playoffs or not, or where are they? Like, are they in trouble? What's their indicator at? They're both just so up there.
I mean, the opening match today is also a very interesting one. Crank is going up against Symbol in our first match today, so we have our Protoss versus Zerg, and at the same time we have with Symbol a player who fell off the individual league already, while on the other hand, Crank is doing quite well for his team. Every single time he comes out in the team league, he really delivers, or at least puts up a very good fight. So having this match today as the first one is already a really good opener. We talked a little bit about Alicia going up against Senta then later on today. I feel the one player who really has a lot of trouble today is actually Ragnarok. Going up as a Zerg player against Innovation is probably as bad as it gets.
Yeah, Ragnarok probably is going to have something really special planned for that one, or I just don't see it coming out his way.
Yeah.
So.
I don't think that Ragnarok will even attempt to go into a late game against Innovation. I actually think that we're going to see a timing attack and just the attempt to kill Innovation early on. I feel the only fate that could be worse for him is going up against Dia. With the current record that Dia has against Zerg, which is actually quite incredible, that would probably be the worst thing, but Innovation with his TVZ is just an opponent that you don't want to face.
Yeah, you never want to face him, and I gotta say, the lineup today could go either way. It really could. We're going to take a look at our results from last week first before we get into that, though. Axiom-Acer did, in fact, take out FX Open in a 4-2. One of those series where FX Open could have taken some pivotal matches, but they failed, and Seoul can be very happy about that.
Yeah, they can definitely be really happy about it, because now they still have a chance to maybe make it out of that 5th spot that they have been stuck in for quite a long time right now. But of course, it also depends on the results that FX Open is going to get and Seoul are going to get. A couple of foreign fans today in the studio. Welcome, guys, to Seoul. Hope that you enjoyed the matches today. And talking about the standings, here they are.
Yeah, here they are. Axiom-Acer currently in the lead 4-1 with +8, but if they lose today, they will drop to the 2nd place spot, of course, making themselves at 4-2. If they win, on the other hand, it just really solidifies their position in 1st place, increasing their ever so high indicator. And as we talked about before, FX Open and Seoul kind of jockeying for that last place spot there, getting to the playoffs.
Yeah. And the two teams, of course, as you can see, with quite a lot of players in the Premier League and also in the Challenger League. And for Axiom-Acer, we have now this scenario with a new Zerg player on the roster with Impact. that they can finally rely on a Zerg. With Scarlet being in Korea, they were always stuck with the Terran and the Protoss players, but now they have a little bit more variety going on there, which makes them a little bit less predictable. That helps them putting up a lineup like this. And you know, we talked a little bit already about Terran play innovation going up against Ragnarok, and you could actually argue that this is one of the matchups that is not really in Axiom-Acer's favor, because Ragnarok is definitely not the best player that AZUBU has on their team, whereas Innovation, on the other hand, is the star player of Axiom-Acer. So using him against one of the, I don't want to say weak players, but one of the weaker players, if you look at the entirety of the roster, is one of those things where you say, like, okay, he's probably going to get his win, but he might have been able to take out one of the better players and secure a victory there. So it's always a bit of good or bad.
Yeah, definitely so. There's that Acer jersey, and the man himself, Innovation, rocking it. And there's Crank wearing that new Axiom jersey.
Yeah. Olivia also there, the manager here for the team in Korea. I'm actually going to do a bit of an interview later with her and ask her a few questions about the team house and the team itself. If you guys have anything that you want to contribute, if you have any questions that you want me to ask later on, then just send me a tweet at Caldo and let me know, and I'll definitely make sure to ask her. So if you're interested in how the team is doing, any specifics about it, then just send me the question and I'll make sure that I will ask that later on. Team AZUBU, on the other hand, starting today with Symbol in the first match, a really strong lineup that they have there. Santa is the one that is going up against Alicia. And I feel the Protoss players are the one that a lot of people are looking for these days. Patience, putting off a lot of good wins. And we actually see Vines today again.
Yeah, we do see Vines again. Still no sign of Nage, and still no sign of that AZUBU coach Smile yet so far today. I'm sure we'll find it a little bit later. Team actually looking a little bit somber today, despite the fact that they're in a pretty good spot here today.
Yeah, the thing that I personally feel is that with a lot of the matchups that they got, they didn't get the best ones. They didn't really get what they wanted. And as you can see here, our opening match is with Symbol and Crank, and that's really bad for Symbol, since against Crank he has a very bad record, and also against Protoss in general, he's not the best player. Then you suddenly have the second match where also a lot of people already predict Axiom-Acer to take it, since Innovation is facing Ragnarok. So there are really a couple of matches that could decide the games early on in favor of Axiom-Acer.
Exactly. I mean, it really, Supernova and Center need to pull their weight today. They're really critical games because Center is a good player, but he's not quite on Supernova's level just yet. And if they lose those matches, then Axiom-Acer could take the early win here. We don't even get to the final game. So
Ryung, of course, always a bit in a troll mode. I told him actually that if he wins his match today against Supernova, then I expect a ceremony of him. Because so far we didn't see too many ceremonies. MMA kind of the only one who really prepared something, and I expected Ryung to do a lot better in regards to the ceremonies this season. He was a little bit shy so far.
Yeah.
Not really the shyest player when it comes down trolling Crank or anyone else on the team.
That's certainly definitely true. And I'm liking the new Axiom jerseys a lot. Looking very comfortable there. But, you know, this is really, really looking like you said, slightly favored to Axiom-Acer just because of alone the matchups that they got. Really favorable ones. And, I mean, they're already in first place, and they just want to keep that spot.
The one thing that you have to remember, of course, is that we are playing best of ones here. And in best of one, anything can happen. Of course, you have your favorite player, and also if you're underdogs. One of the examples is definitely the match that we talked about a lot already, Innovation versus Ragnarok. But with a really good build, with something that Innovation doesn't expect, this match could also go either way. Of course, everyone thinks that Innovation is going to take it. But if you get one or two upsets in, then suddenly an entire team match can suddenly completely change.
Yeah, definitely true. And we've seen it in the past. So
I was actually a little bit like, not really annoyed, but I was a little bit sad when I saw the maps today, because Fruitland is actually the ace map today. That made me a little bit sad. Games on Fruitland are also one of the most favorite things that I have this season, so I really want to see that map. So I hope that we're going into a 4-3 today.
Well, you know, if we do go into that epic ace match, it just makes it all the more exciting because it's on Fruitland, and that can get really intense, especially because it's probably the map that the players practice the least this season, or this series, expecting not to go to the ace match.
I actually think that if we're going into Fruitland, we will most likely see a Terran versus Terran.
Yeah, I think so. And we haven't seen a TVT there yet, actually, at all, not even once.
So the problem is it's a little bit predictable to always say, okay, Axiom-Acer is going to send out Innovation, but he's still the best player on the team right now, so using him as the ace player would make a lot of sense.
But I could also see Ryung coming instead.
Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, you know, if you're in Team AZUBU, you think, all right, they're probably going to use Innovation here, so we don't want to send out a Zerg player since Innovation is just too strong in the matchup. The Protoss players don't have the experience, so you would most likely resort to one of the Terran players on your lineup. And then it doesn't really matter if it's going to be Innovation or Rian going to be the ace player, it would be a TVT if that really comes to pass.
I agree. I think we'll definitely see a TVT in the ace match if it comes to that. Here's a look at Crank's stats. Really, like you said, even if he doesn't win, he always puts out a good show for his team this season. He's got a positive win ratio. And he's also basically serving as the playing coach as well for the team. So he's got a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, and he's shouldering it well. I'm really impressed that he's been able to do this season for his team.
He's definitely making a showing here. And to be quite frank with you, Crank in this Protoss vs. Zerg does pretty well this season. He won against Linux with a 1-0. He lost to Hyun just barely with a 1-2. And he took down in the GSTL this season Symbol already twice. So he's 2-0 versus Symbol right now, and that is one of those things where AZUBU probably didn't really like it when they saw how the maps would work out for them, how the matchups were being distributed here. Because Symbol, not only against Crank, but also in the matchup itself, is really struggling.
Yeah, very true. Look at his overall win ratio in the GSTL just to give an idea of his experience overall, because this is all even back in the TSL days. He is a very successful GSTL player. Yeah. Usually, you know, in the all-kill format, he's the player who comes out last or second last, kind of as the anchor of the team. So him coming out first here, definitely starting things off with a bang.
I mean, one of the things that people who witnessed it live will probably never forget is this amazing performance that we saw from Symbol when he was back in Team TSL and they were facing up against Incredible Miracle. Yeah. The reverse all-kill that we got in the old best-of-9 format. This was just one of the most incredible things that I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
Yeah, and he won the ZVZ against Lucira in the middle of it all, where he was actually got to come back in the game itself. That was a crazy series. Actually, you can go back and check out that VOD if you have not seen it. Even though we just spoiled the ending, watching it, I guarantee you it's definitely going to give you chills.
It was pretty mind-blowing. That was all the way back in 2012, and it was just incredible. Probably the best team match in StarCraft 2 that I've ever seen played. But right now, Symbol is struggling a little bit against Protoss, and his opponent is a Protoss player. Crank doing quite well for his team, and is one of those players that has a really good work ethic. He always prepares very well for his matches. He has faced Symbol several times in the recent past, and he was able to take wins of the AZUBU Zerg player. So Derelict Watcher is going to be the map.
Yeah, should be a good, fun first starting match here. I think it really could go either way. It depends on the condition of both of these two players. Like you said, Crank having the upper hand in some ways against Symbol, but Symbol just so much more experience in the matchup. Not a really good time for Zergs right now in the metagame for Zerg versus Protoss. It's a pretty tough matchup, so this one could go either way, I really feel.
At the same time, I really feel that if we have one of those scenarios where actually the predictions come true, then AZUBU is going to have a very tough time today. Impact showed us very interesting games the last time. He's up against Vines today. I can definitely see him win that game. Alicia versus Center is also one of those matches where the Protoss could take it. So AZUBU needs to be careful. They need a few players to really perform well here if they don't want to get stomped by Axiom-Acer. Pretty good lineup for Axiom-Acer today. But let's jump into game number 1. Crank vs. Symbol. He has the GSTL Season 2013. Power Wolf. Starting to the top right, we have the Protoss player for Team Axiom-Acer. It is
Axiom Crank.
Crank. What he's cranking, nobody will ever know.
He's up against the Zerg player today, one that he defeated several times in the recent past. Starting to the bottom left for Team AZUBU.
AZUBU Symbol.
You know, I actually, I gave a lot of thought to Symbol's ID, and we talked about this a lot in the past, but I never really thought, you know, where does the ID Crank come from? I don't think we ever talked about this. Like,
he watched the movie and liked it.
Yeah, it could be, or maybe he's like, you know, his team is on a chain and he's cranking it, reeling it in, like getting them what they need to do. I don't know.
No, dude, he's pulling Jason's teeth. Definitely.
Yeah, to be honest, I never saw Crank, but
What?
I think I was in high school when that came out and everyone was talking about it.
You're kidding, right?
Yeah, I never saw it.
You need to watch that movie. If you like action movies, this is one of the most fun ones just because it's a little bit different.
I thought it was a horror movie. It's not a horror movie.
No.
I don't know. Crank sounds scary, so maybe that's...
There's several ones of them. You need to watch them. They're really funny. The idea that is behind them is actually quite nice. Like, he has to keep his adrenaline up the entire time. And if not for that, he'll die because he has like a weird poison or drug in his system. And that results in all kinds of fun. So you definitely have to watch
basically,
that.
he's just constantly doing crazy stuff.
Exactly. And it really works. So the movie is pretty cool. You should definitely check that out. It's absolutely worth it.
All right. I mean,
it's just different.
All of your movie recommendations you give me so far have been pretty good. So,
if you like action movies and you like a few like really interesting or weird ideas, that's the movie to go for. It's of course not really a realistic movie or anything like it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, like, the older I got, actually, as it turns out, like, the more I liked action movies. I'm not sure why.
Can't like bother to think anymore.
Yeah, I'm just like, nah, I'm tired of thinking about those, like. You know, Inception was great, by the way, but, like, you know, sometimes I just want to watch things blow up. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's, like, you know, some sort of inner, like, subconscious, like, anger that I have, like, after losing so many StarCraft matches that I just want to watch cars explode and people get shot, and it's exciting. There's a third hatchery here, by the way, spotted as well.
Just to put that aggression somewhere that you don't start pulling a QXC and suddenly destroy a keyboard.
Yeah, I haven't broken any keyboards yet. And I don't want to start now. Although I did spill water on my keyboard, and that's the craziest thing. I spilled water on my keyboard last night, and I had to pop a key off and clean it. That was like my craziest thing.
When I lose a game where it's like my own fault and I really rage about it, I usually throw stuff. That's why I'm really happy that the end of my bad lean thingy is like really sturdy. There are so many bottles that were already thrown against that in rage when I lost like the game like really stupidly, when I didn't see like proxy happen or whatever, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. And yeah, I'm really happy that that still survived.
The most ragey thing I'll ever do in StarCraft, generally speaking, is like say something mean to my opponent and then like Alt F4. He's got two overlords actually coming at the same direction here, rather than splitting them off. And he's actually now going to split it a little bit, but the way he sends this is not actually, I guess, the most normal way. He gets a good view of what's going on the other hand, and so far sees there's no third gas.
You know when like some people really insult their opponents or go like for these mom jokes, and like one of the best ones that I actually heard when I was playing a little bit of Diablo 3 just recently was like, if you insult someone, you go just like your mom pukes zombies in Act 1.
Oh my god.
It was it had me in tears. Like, I did so not see that one coming, and then suddenly when I read it, I was like, oh my god, this is brilliant.
What's the technical term for that boss? Is like the witch mother? Is that what it's called? Something like that?
Wretched Mother.
Wretched Mother, yeah.
Like, yeah, your mom pukes zombies in Act 1.
That's good, actually. When that Diablo expansion comes out, I'm going to have to do
You have to use that in real life, and then look at the confused expression on the other guy's face, like, what? And everyone else, all the nerds around, you're like,
Like, that one took me a second to get, but as soon as I thought about it, it was very clever.
I love it.
This pressure here, by the way, could do a little bit of damage. There's plenty of Zerglings to defend on the other hand, and they should buy enough time. Actually, yeah, he's got way too many Zerglings here.
He needs to be careful. I mean, the Zealot already getting surrounded here, and now with the lair take started, you can already see that speed was skipped so far, so he invests the first 100 gas that he has right into the tech. But the Zealot already going down, and that's very annoying for him right now. He needs to be careful with the Stalker so that he doesn't lose that either.
Whoa. That's a fast third Nexus.
That's that 720 third Nexus that we sometimes see if the Protoss player really decides to go into a more gateway-heavy army at the beginning of the match. Usually you see that with a few more sentries on the other hand, but he goes into double Stargate behind this. Oh,
okay, so we're going to see not Alicia here, but actually Crank go for Void Rays heavily, it looks like.
He probably trained with Alicia.
Yeah, he probably did. I mean, they are in fact on the same team, so... Yeah, I think this is actually a really creative style. If it's not scouted, it can definitely easily work. I mean, the thing is, Symbol is not... The Symbol is the type of player who will never just make like 20 lings and try to force a cancel. He'll just take a fourth base, as you can see here. So in the rare case that Symbol does do like a Hydra Roach timing, if you have enough gateways and you've got the Void Rays out to kind of buffer, you're going to be in a good spot. And with the Infestation pick going down here, I think we might actually see a commitment to Swarm Hosts.
What I really like in this game is that both of them are playing it a little bit more passive, which leads us just into a very strong late mid-game and also, of course, end-game. Because right now we have that third base for the Protoss player, and Symbol couldn't really contest that. Crank already identified that Symbol was trying to play this a little bit more economy early base and then took this early third. And upon Symbol realizing it, he went into a fourth on his own. So both of these players really just trying to skip the early game here.
Yeah. But we hit a double Phoenix before Void Rays, and that's actually going to allow him to clean up Overlords on the map and give him a little bit of scouting information, so that's kind of cool. Did he actually cancel them? No, he didn't. Okay, so there they are. So he can actually kind of go around and be annoying with those.
Yeah, and with the double Phoenix, you know, there's now he knows that there's a double Stargate, alright. So now he has the vision that he needs, but the Void Ray production has already begun. And that kind of ensures that even if there's some kind of Roach commitment by Symbol, those two Void Rays would shut down that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But Symbol already in a position where he now tries to go into Hive Tech, and the Hive Tech, of course, for the Vipers here that he can then use. And he also goes into his Hydra list, so they will help a little bit against those Phoenixes initially. And as you can see, there's not a massive commitment to them.
Yeah, and the Infestors are actually going to come out instead of Stormhost, which is a smart choice now that you've seen the double Stargate, because that's going to be great against Void Rays. Infestors are basically the best thing that you've got against Void Rays. It's not Corruptors, as you might think, but Infestors with Fungals and Infested Terrans can be really good against that.
Yeah, depending on the numbers and what else the Protoss player has, Mutalisk can also be a good choice,
that's
but
true.
You need to have a really good economy behind it to really support that.
And you might think like Hydras are pretty good, but they're actually like only okay against Void Rays, depending on the situation.
The problem with the Hydra list is that usually when you have already a really huge number of Void Rays, you have a bit of Grunt support as well. And that will either be a Colossi, that could also be a Templars with Storm, or just simply Zealots with Charge. And whatever you have, like your Hydra list will be really hard pressed to make something happen.
Yeah, they can't really close the distance even though they have so much range.
One of the things that you see quite often against it is Hydras and Queens. That actually works quite well together, since the Queens can take a lot of damage and then go for the Transfuse, whereas the Hydra lists try to dish out the DPS. That's kind of really important if you want to make that work. And Crank, with the 3 base that he has, is already adding the extra attack that we just talked about. He has no upgrades whatsoever just now, but he's going straight into the Templar Archive, and that will allow him to feedback Vipers, to go into Storm against Hydralisks. So he has a lot of options here.
Yeah, Adrenal Gland's coming out as well here, so his Zerglings are going to be all the more effective. And the Void Ray count is getting pretty dangerous here. And he's actually been allowed to have that 4th base for Symbol, that is, have that 4th base for a really long time. So I don't think he's actually going to commit here. He just wants to make sure there's no 4th base to the north. He's going to check for that, and he's going to pressure a little bit.
Here comes a charge upgrade on those Zealots that I was talking about earlier. That can really help you if you want to do something against the Hydra list. You put pressure on them. The interesting thing is that we have 2 Banelings here already, and if he gets a few more than that, he can actually just move those Banelings into the Zealots if he has a good opportunity to do so, and then make sure that this kind of meat shield that you have at the front that is supposed to pressure your Hydra list is going down really quickly. And there we have the 9 additional ones, and even a few Roaches to tank more damage. So that's going to be a really interesting push that the Symbol is currently executing.
Yeah, this is looking really scary. The army supply is almost dead. Even this hatchery will have to be cancelled. But how many Void Rays do we have? I think we have like 10 or so. And Storm is not complete yet. He doesn't, as far as I know, have any Templar either. So the Templar for the feedback's not here yet.
Well, here we go. Symbol is about to move in here. The Void Ray number is currently at 8. We have a few of the Roaches at the top already trying to bust their way through the small wall that we have there. And the Zealot is already gone. The rest of the army for Crank currently just waiting there, trying to get a good engagement. But at the same time, he's exposing his wall. There's the Cybernetics core that could be sniped, and also that Forge.
Yep. Templar Archives will finish Storm, though there's no way you can snipe that. And here we go. The Storms are ready, and they do hit quite a few Hydras. The Banelings go down as well. Bungles are decent, but I'm not sure if they're good enough. The Hydras, on the other hand, a great concave. Is there enough DPS here? That's the question.
The charge dots are already gone. Those Void Rays are going to town, taking down everything that the Zerg player has, and immediately Symbol is retreating here. His Banelings didn't do as much as he hoped for, but they killed most of the Zealots already. The Hydralists, on the other hand, just can't deal with the Void Rays at this point in time.
Yeah, but he's remaxing so quickly. 14 more Roaches, 11 more Hydras. He's unpowered the Stargates. He's actually traded really well here. He actually killed several of the Void Rays, killed all the Templar.
The only thing that he didn't take down was the Cybernetics core. That would have really helped him. He focused on the Forge first, didn't take down the Cybernetics core, and at this point, Symbol really trying to max out his army size. Once again, go for that 5th base that he wants to establish, taking down the Zealots that are sent over by Crank. And the Protoss player is in a little bit of trouble here. He wants to just solidify his position even more, getting those Void Ray numbers into the game and adding the extra attack with the Colossi that he wants to add in his composition.
Yeah, this is looking really good so far for Symbol, because he's had this 3rd base really uncontested, or 4th I should say. The 5th is going to complete now, and he's just got the better traits every single time. He's denied a 4th, and this Zealot run by, you know, if he sees it, he should be able to deal with it relatively easily. and there's just no Colossi. The Hydra's numbers are so high. Only 3 Spine Crawlers here with Transfuse. Maybe in these Roaches he holds. It looks like he probably will.
Yeah, he has everything that he needs here. Another run by on the other hand at the bottom left at that 5th base. Here come those Banelings still waiting, trying to wait for the Zealots that just might rush down that ramp. And here come on the other hand the High Templars trying to go for the Storms. And they could be devastating in this many low hit point units. The feedback's going down against the Infestors. The wall already been taken down by Symbol. Here come the Zealots moving in, and Symbol on the other hand is trying to end it now, moving into the Storms.
The Storms are really good here. The Banelings do connect a few of those Templar. And the Void Ray's funneled. Perfect chain funnel here on every single Void Ray. He needs to get one more, but he doesn't have enough energy. And the Zealots actually will clean up house on the ground. The Archon finishes as well. And Symbol will lose that 5th base to the south.
He could take down a lot of the Void Rays on the other hand. That funnel was worth so much for him. He made sure that only one Void Ray could attack while those Hydralisks approached from the perfect angle. Now the Cybernetics Core is taken out at the top of that ramp as well. Symbol doing a really good job here so far, but Crank is still holding.
Crank is basically, doing the opposite of what you would normally do as a Protoss. He's basically taken a few core units like the Void Rays, kept them alive, and he's using mostly Zealots to actually clean up the actual army on the ground. Yes, he does have a few Templar. The Storms are decent. He's killing the Banelings, but he's eliminating the Hydras over and over again and stabilizing each time. The big problem, of course, is where's the 4th? There's no 4th base in sight, and with no map control, how is he ever going to take one? He's long distance mining, in fact, right now.
Yeah, and Symbol is switching gears a little bit. Crank is trying to go into a Colossi and is not focusing this much on the Void Rays anymore. And Symbol is using that to just go for a more roach-heavy army instead of just mixing in this many Hydralisks the entire time. He knows that he has only to deal with a few Void Rays at this point, only 3 of them remaining. So a much more roach-heavy composition. That tech switch is really going to do numbers on Crank if he doesn't get good feedbacks off against the Vipers.
Yeah, and even if you get full Storms on Roaches, Storm it's decent against Roaches, but it's not as good as against Hydras. The Roaches just have so many hit points.
Great Observer there, by the way. Yeah. Really in the best spot. He needs to get the Observer. He needs to have the vision so he can get the feedback in. If the Vipers are able to get their Yanks, that would be horrible for Crank. He can't lose those Colossi.
And a lot of people might be wondering why there's no Baneling speed. The thing is, the Banelings just need to be at the front to tank any Zealots that try to charge in. He doesn't need them to be at the front to charge. And great pulls on the Void Ray as well as the Colossus. Fungal goes down as well. Another yank. Double yank here. Beautiful yanks. And Crank is in trouble. He doesn't have any more AoE, doesn't have any more Storm. The last Colossus will fall, and GG.
GG and game. Finally, Symbol taking out Crank the last 2 times. He was not able to do that, but this time he is the one to deliver the first point for his team. Axiom-Acer down 1 map after this opening match between Crank and Symbol. Good job by the Zerg player for Team AZUBU.
Yeah, puts them in that 1-0 lead. A place they really want to be considering the matchups we have today. And Crank not looking too happy. Looks like he's got some sort of wrist injury as well. I wonder if that affected his play in any way. But as it is, the Banelings actually were a cool idea. And it kind of forced Crank to take engagements a little bit awkwardly because he would love to have the Zealots just tank in the front, then hit those Storms, but he kind of had to try to Storm first because the Banelings would have just killed the Zealots instantly.
Crank taking the loss pretty hard here, actually, and it's quite understandable since he puts himself always in a position where he has to carry his team a little bit, and he gives his all to prepare for those matches. This time he lost it, and if you think about the recent history that he has against Symbol, it's one of those games where he probably thought, okay, I'm not going to be able to win that game, but I bring my team in the lead in a really comfortable position.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for him, that's not going to be the case here in game number 1. And Symbol's playstyle was cool. He saw the 3rd base, and he was like, all right, 4th going up instantly. You got double Stargate. I'm going to make Infestors here. He may have been planning on going Infestors all along, but I think it was kind of a reaction to seeing the double Stargate, so he'd get those Fungals out. If you have that many Fungals early, it's basically, like I said before, the best thing you can do with the Void Rays. You lock them down. They can't close the distance on the Hydras. The Hydras do damage from behind.
Really important was what we saw from Symbol in terms of defense. He always had the Spine Crawlers up at the 4th base to the top left, and he sent units to just secure himself that 5th base. Crank was trying to harass both bases, and he was successful in taking down the 5th, but the 4th was always uncontested since Symbol invested in those Spine Crawlers. A lot of Zerg players will try to just skip that, establish the map control, and then try to dominate the match there. But with the run-bys, Crank could have done so much damage. If that 4th falls, then the entire army of Symbol is going to crumble because he just doesn't have the income anymore to support this army size that he wants to build up. So really important here as well that he came from a very strong defensive position to go into these aggressive pushes.
And his timings are really good because if he waited a little bit longer, then maybe there could have been a 4th base for Crank, or maybe he could have had his Colossi tech out a little bit faster. Because if you have Colossi and Storm, it's so much easier to defend those types of pushes.
At the same time, also the tech switch that he made from Hydrolysis into Roaches.
Oh, yeah,
there
so
was
smart.
so many Storms and also the Colossi, so it was really a good choice for him to switch it up a little bit. Now we have game number 2, of course, coming up, and this is one of the matches where Axiom-Acer thought, alright, this is definitely going to be a point for us. But in a best of 1, everything is possible. Innovation, he's going to be the next player, and he is up in his best matchup.
He's like, he had this look on his face, like he's surfing Play XP right now. Like he's like, what did they say about me on Play XP? He's like, that's not true. He's like, I'm definitely better than Deer. Just because he won that tournament doesn't mean they could say that about me. I'll prove myself here. Ranked first in WCS points, 6-1 in GSTL. Named by many the best player in the world. And he's playing his best matchup against a relatively, I don't want to call him a rookie player, I don't want to call him an inexperienced player. He's just not a flashy player, Ragnarok, that is.
Describes him really well. He's definitely a player that has shown a lot of promise in the past, also one of those players that we had on Team TSL, and him and a few others were like the younger players in the team that showed a lot of promise. And he's definitely someone who can edge out a victory, but he has a very, very tough task ahead of him.
Yeah, this is not going to be easy. In fact, it's going to be the direct opposite of easy. It's going to be like the hardest, perhaps the hardest match he's ever had to take in the Team League. He does have a positive GSTL win rate. When he was on LGIM, he was doing very, very well. That's when he had his most success. And then moving into AZUBU, he still stayed solid. But he's got a mountain to climb today.
Yeah, he definitely has. He has a solid win ratio in the matchup, but he's going up against Innovation. He has nearly an 80% win ratio against Zerg. But before we head into the next match, we have a 5-minute break. We'll see you guys in a few here at the GSTL with Axiom-Acer versus Team AZUBU.